Why did Frank Zappa have a big bed with handcuffs in the middle of the recording studio, or at least in a room in the recording studio? Grand Funk recorded with Frank Zappa way back in the early days. And as Mark would say, Frank Zappa would make coffee nervous. We talk about that and a lot more with former Grand Funk great Mark Farner, who's just released a new album. There'll be information in the description where you can pick it up on Rock History Music. Some very interesting facts about Frank Zappa. He had an unusual childhood hobby. As a kid, he had a fascination with chemistry and explosives. He often conducted experiments at home, creating various concoctions and occasionally causing minor explosions, much to his parents' concern. His anti-drug stance. Despite his avant-garde and often controversial persona, Zappa was a staunch opponent of drug use. He insisted on a drug-free environment for his band members and was very vocal about the negative impacts of substance abuse. Celebrity connections. Zappa had a unique friendship with Alice Cooper, whom he discovered and signed to his record label. Their bond was marked with bizarre antics, including a notorious incident where Zappa reportedly signed Cooper's band after a peculiar audition involving a chicken. Legal battles. Zappa was involved in a high-profile legal battle with a fan, Pauline Butcher, about an unauthorized biography that she wrote about him. Zappa's relentless pursuit really highlighted his fiercely protective stance on his personal life and his image. Run for president. In the early 1990s, Zappa announced his intention to run for president of the United States. His platform focused on government reform and individual liberties. Though his bid was more of a satirical critique of the political system, some fans thought it was serious. That old Grand Funk special, that thing that's on YouTube where you're riding the motorcycle through the field.
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was in Parshallville, Michigan. It was across the street from the studio that we lovingly called the Swamp. And that was where we cut the tracks to American Band. And we cut the tracks to Good Singing and Good Playing that Zappa produced. But in both cases, we went to other studio to do the vocals. We went to Criteria to do the vocals for We're an American Band. And we went out to LA to this, I can't even remember the name of the studio there that Zappa liked to work in. And then when he got there, I mean, you know, he says, I want to take you guys on a tour of the studio. We're going, well, okay. So we're walking down this it's like a hallway that's dimly lit. And he opens the first door and you walk in and here's this bed, Brother John, with a big crank at the end and some leather straps coming up. And there was whips hanging on the wall and chains and stuff. And I'm going, what?
What kind of party is this?
Yeah, what is this? And this is in a recording studio. I'd say, what is it? You get in the mood and then you can go in here and engineer. So there was all these odd rooms in this studio. And but you know, Frank, he did his job. He was a musical genius in his own respect, I believe. And so was Rundgren in his own respect. And God bless them for what they did to put our music where it ended up in the ears and in the hearts of the fans.
What do you think is most misunderstood about Frank Zappa?
I think people thought he was nuts because of the lyrical content. I thought, you know, a lot of people thought he was on drugs. The boy never took drugs, never. And when he drank, it was Shirley Temple's, Brother John. I kid you not. He was straight as straight could be. And the only thing he really overindulged in that I could see as a observer was coffee, man. There was not enough coffee in the world for that man. You know, why we were recording, he had one of those air pots where you pump and it comes out into your cup, you know, and he had that sitting on the producer's desk over to the side of the console in the mixing, you know, in the control room. And he would look down in there and he's drinking his coffee, and he always drank it black. And then he'd go over there and he'd look again. And when it got about halfway down, he'd send the engineer to make another pot of coffee. Serious. He would make a cup of coffee nervous.
Mark Was it you that told me that when you were working with Frank Zappa, there was a bed in the studio or something? Was that you?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Uh, the hallway. He went over in this creepy looking door. I'm thinking, what is this door doing in this studio? But it was just the invitation that was on that door was just very representative of what was down the hallway when he opened that door and we went down the hallway. The first door we came to, the first room on the left was he opened the door and here's this bed in there with uh, a crank on the end of it and leather tongs and stuff where you could stretch a person out, crank it and stretch him out. There's a cat of nine tails hanging on the wall and looks like a palace. These blocks are in there and the fire is burning. It's just a torch in there for a light. And we're there going, what the hell is this? Man, I'm looking around.
Did you ask him?
No, he says, let your imagination be your guide. And because he would never say anything. Frank, yeah, he wouldn't say shit if he had a mouthful of it.
When you had told me, he says Frank would make coffee nervous.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. And when we went out, people were ordering drinks and Frank would order a Shirley Temple. He didn't drink. He never did drugs. He was just naturally stoned.
In a second, but what do you think Frank Zappa would be doing now?
I think he'd still be performing. He was a monster guitar player. The hammer-on stuff that Van Halen did, I think he got a lot of that from, seriously from Frank. He played on Good Singing, Good Playing, one of the tracks on that album that he produced for us. And if you listen to that, that boy was, wow. His mind was just, he just picked it up. It wasn't like he rehearsed it or anything. One take, and that's it. It all just came out. And I'm going, oh my God, where did that come from?
There's so many great albums too of Grand Funks that are celebrating 50 years this year. I just asked Ian Anderson this about Aquil, and I says, what was it about that time? And I'll tell you what he said. He said, well, we knew what was behind us. We knew what was, and we knew what was in front of us. There was a lot of competition back then. A lot of great albums. Zeppelin 4, 2 Yes albums. You guys had 2. Tapestry. It never stops. But
Yeah.
what was it about? What did it feel like for you in '71? You guys were on top of the world.
Well, it was the influence that the people had on our radio stations because it was prior to the deregulation of the FCC.
Yeah.
That was part of the community that we had. And that community, as you know, brother, just the echoes of that from still has power in our youth today because they're so intrigued by it. They gravitate to it because it was calling out. There was some real honesty there, and it wasn't provoked by trying to be Johnny Badass or how many times can you say fuck in a song or goddamn this or that. It's shock value. Whoop-de-doo, whoop-de-whoop-de, so you can say words. What we need is that community back and the voice of the people saying to the jocks, yes, I love that song. Can you play Bad Time by Grand Funk? That's how it got to be played more than any other song in 1975, John. It's because people were calling in and requesting it. And thank you, all of you people that love Bad Time and called in, because I got a BMI award, broadcast music industry, for it being played more than the one that went to number 1. Mine was like number 3. Bad Time, but it got played more than the one that went to #1, and I'm proud of that. But
It's interesting.
because,
Yeah, some of the songs that were big back then, and you look at them now and you're going, oh, wait a minute. They're not as big now as they were before. You guys, all your tunes are doing incredibly well.
yes, thank God. But when we had a voice in it, when the jocks were local and they were part of what held the community together, even in northern Michigan, where I am now, there are several stations that are holding the people together up here because they're not corporate conglomerate owned stations. They are independent, and they speak with a patriotic voice and sense of responsibility. And that's what's missing in lamestream. All there is ego, 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 ego. Forget about it.
Ask Mark if he's happy with the legacy of Grand Funk Railroad and the music they recorded, or does he feel regretful that their relationship fell hopelessly apart?
I'm not regretful because I wouldn't allow myself to put myself in debt. You can't regret. You're just fooling yourself. Why would you want to put yourself deeper into something you're being set free from as you're discovering that debt is accumulative, the nature of it? In the first place, it's imaginative. It comes from our imaginations. You can't go down to the drugstore and buy a little box of it and bring it home and sort through it. You can't have a dump truck dump a load in the front yard so you can wade through this and get to know it. No, it's all here, and each one, like I said, it's accumulative in its weight, and it's this debt that people hold us in, not just money debt. That's part of it. Yes, of course, that's part of it. It's a scenario of debt, but you have the unfulfilled expectations of people on you, and if you don't fulfill those, then they put you on the shit list. And if it's a family deal, forget about it. You get all these people calling, well, how did you find out about what? It's like this, and it's debt. It is fear-based. I think the very root of it is the fear of rejection. Just off top of my head, but it's fear-based, and God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. That's the things we need to gravitate to, not all this other shit. The indebtedness, when we deal with it, the miracles will start.
Okay, Ringo Starr, you toured with Ringo Starr.
Yes.
So I'm asking you, who's Ringo Starr? More than the Beatles, but to you, you got to know him. Well, you spent some time with him. Who's Ringo Starr to Mark Forner?
Ringo Starr is a genuine soul. He, let me just preface by saying that when we went to Japan and had our press conference, Ringo was sitting in the middle, and we were at a big table up on the stage, and the musicians went down both sides. Like Ringo's in the middle, kind of like the Last Supper picture, but Ringo being Christ, right? And so this gal comes up to me, brother, and she said, Mr. Farner, what is it like playing with Beatles? And I stood up and I said, honey, Ringo puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like I do. And he stood up, Brother John, and came over, wrapped his arms around me. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And, because I identified with him as just being a human being. He was lucky to be where he was when he was, just like the guys in Grand Funk. We were lucky to be where we were when we were there. And that's all there is to it. There's no other magical mystery to it. It's just happenstance. So I love Ringo. He's a genuine soul. He tries to, to just because people pester him all the time for autographs. I mean, get on an airplane, people will be coming up into first class going, can we get your autograph? I mean, seriously, they won't leave him alone. So if he puts a ball cap and sunglasses on, he looks like Ringo with ball cap and sunglasses. I mean, he cannot disguise himself. So with that regard, I feel a little for him, because I can slip in and nobody knows who I am. Really, seriously, but not Ringo. He can't do that. But I love him because of, who he really is. And he's a kind, and he's really a simple soul. Yeah. His spirit is genuine and true. And I just love the guy.
I was supposed to talk to Roger Dean yesterday, but he got his, the guy who did the Yes covers and a whole bunch of different covers. Anyway, before this is our third interview, but the first time I was going to talk to you, I went in and you get to size up the person. Go, okay, yeah. So I always listen to an interview with the guy. I was listening to an interview with Roger Dean yesterday. He and his daughter Freya are doing this big show, but he said something I think you'll relate to. He said the trick is to disengage the analytical part of the mind and engage daydreaming so you didn't get your own way. When you wrote that song, you did not get in your own way. You just kept going.
Yeah, man, that's what it is, truly. And to be able to do that, wouldn't we love to be able to do that on command? Yeah. That we command that, but it has to be during a time period when that is available to you.
Yeah, it can't be forced.
To recognize that and to just shut everything else out. Let's get serious here, Yeah.
Some people have said, I forget who the artist was I talked to years ago. He had said that, oh God, I guess it doesn't matter. But he said, I don't think I'd be as alive. He says, not only would I maybe not be alive, but he said, there's that zest for life in there of being able to recognize those moments. There's life that he says, I don't know if it's God, but I remember I get goosebumps remembering, just like I got goosebumps when you were explaining that song. He said, there's just something in there that to be able to recognize that, it's like getting an extra shot of whatever, not a drug, but
yeah. Well, it's an extra shot of love.
Yeah.
Because isn't that what we're seeking? I know you are. I could tell you that just by your countenance and your personality, or what your disposition is, that you are a love seeker, and the same as I am. And those people who made up our rock community, that's what it was all about. And when the Beatles were saying peace and love, and and John and Yoko was in bed for a month promoting peace, come on. It was the powers that be didn't like that, because they got to have war, and they got to have all this other bull crap in order to push this agenda that they're pushing. But a lot of people are going through life without an awareness to that kind of evil. And I feel very compassionate about these people, because they're just misled. Mm-hmm. They're innocent people that became gullible, and they took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. And even though they're standing there direct opposite of who I am and what I believe in, I have to have compassion for them, because there but for the grace of God goes me. I didn't buy into it, but this person did. Maybe if they feel the real love, the real power that's driving us, maybe that will compel them to come out from there. That's the hope. And that's what I try to put in my songs, brother.
Yeah. I was talking to Richie Furay again for the third time with him the other day. And I was saying, Richie, you've gone through, he never got sucked into it, but I don't want to say sucked, because sometimes people have to go through that. It's not how you fall down. Sometimes it's how you get up. Right.
Yeah, dude.
And I said, okay, Richie, someone comes up to you and lived because he was surrounded by it. You lived the rock and roll lifestyle, the when in Rome. I'm a rocker. So, but if someone came up to you, I asked him this question, but someone came up to you and say, Mark, I'm licking the floor with pain. I'm a little lost in my life. And you seem like you're plugged into something that I don't recognize, but I like it. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that love is unconditional, and love gave itself and continues to give itself for the sake of our souls, for the peace that passes understanding, that we must set ourselves free to attain. There's all of these other obstacles that have been put upon us, and debt consciousness is our worst enemy, because debt is accumulative in its weight, and the more debt, and it's not just financial debt, Brother John, it's the debt of unfulfilled expectations of other people, and the debt of regret that we hold within ourselves. But we are the only ones. I mean, there's a lot more indebtedness, and we could, if we just sat here and kind of bat it back and forth, we could take up the rest of the interview with defining debt. But that debt screws with our imagination, because it is our imagination that gives it a place to live. So this is why it's important that we don't watch, that we let our minds imagine and get past this indebtedness. And I would say to that brother or sister, set yourself free. You deserve it. You deserve it. And when you set yourself free, because you're the only one who can, then others will see it in you, and they will come and ask you.
Like that person's asking you now. Yeah.
Yeah, brother.
If you want to donate to the channel, there's a PayPal link at the very top of every video we have. Also, if you want to join our Patreon, there's a link at the very top. You'll get early access to all our videos. And a swag store. Yes, we have one where you can get rock history music and all the clothing that goes with it, with those great logos. Subscribe to our channel, share our videos, comment on them, and like them as well. I'm John Bowden. This is Rock History Music. Take care of yourself.